Today's episode of Music Business Facts is brought to you by the audiobook company Audible. If you didn't already know, Audible have some really cool audiobooks to check out on pretty much any subject you can think of. And right now you can get a free audiobook today by going over to www.nbfbook.com. Currently I'm listening to a book called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. And I'm finding this one a little bit hard to get into because the voiceover style isn't really the best, but I'm sticking with it because the audio content is really, really interesting. Anyhow, if you're interested in audio and you want a free audiobook, check out nbfbook.com today.
We still see an incredible value in copyright in the current environment. And into the future, we see a massive value increasing, but we're changing from buying products to consuming, and people are going to continue to value copyright because they're valuing creativity.
Welcome to the Music Business Facts Podcast, where successful music industry experts share their industry secrets that will help you take your music career to the next level.
G'day ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Music Business Facts Podcast. I'm Rodney Holder, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend it with me for the next hour or so. So thanks so much for that. And thanks to my beautiful 2-year-old daughter Zara, I've still got this damn cold, so please excuse my voice today. I was actually giving her a little cuddle and she sneezed in my face. So if you're a parent, you probably know about that. And if you're not a parent, well, that's what you can expect. But anyhow, please bear with me. You know, one of the many things that I absolutely love about podcasting as a medium is its ability to not only connect with people on what is often a much deeper level, but also during that connection, the podcast interview allows my guests to really dive deeper into their wealth of experiences and opinions and wisdom and knowledge. And that's what this podcast is all about, people, to enable the in-depth practical learning for both myself and you people, and to get educated about the music industry from some of the smartest minds and heaviest hitters in the business. And I think today's episode of Music Business Facts really highlights all of that with my interview with Matt Rogers, who is the Chief Operating Officer from the Unified Music Group. Now, if you've never heard of Matt, as I mentioned, he's the COO of Unified, and Unified are a successful and innovative Australian music-based company that provide a stack of services including the record label, artist management, recorded music, merchandise, touring and events. And they're also the people behind the Unified Festival, which is Australia's only heavy music camping festival happening in January, which is sold out, by the way. Anyhow, I found Matt to be a really cool guy. He was a really smart guy. He's also a music lawyer, very humble and also very welcoming. And in this conversation, he really digs deep into some really interesting and important topics, including the importance of protecting the value of copyright and ensuring that the legislators get it all right to protect that side of the music businesses, which is obviously very, very important. So as I've mentioned, I really do think this is a really educational episode of the show, so get ready to learn some stuff. And without further ado, here's my interview with Matt Rogers, the Chief Operating Officer for the Unified Music Group. Enjoy. And by the way, this one is a bit of a lucrative interview too, because as you'll hear, Matt's never done a podcast interview before, so very, very cool stuff. And I'm very excited to bring you this interview. Enjoy it. Matt, for anyone who doesn't know you or know anything about you or Unified, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself personally and then tell us about what you do at Unified?
So I started in music in Brisbane many moon ago in a little record store called Skinny's, and that was a very, very... music retail is the best place to start, I think, for many people in the music industry. I went from there, I worked at community radio at Triple Z, 4ZZZ, and then I started my own poster and promo code and distribution company with another Brisbane guy, Anthony Aiken, and I did that solely as I was studying. I did that solely to get free tickets, continue getting free tickets to shows, and then also but more so to learn more about the industry and build contacts in the industry, so that when I finished studying and went to practice law, which I was doing, went to want to practice music law and entertainment law. I then had people that I knew and had met, managers and agents and promoters that then, if I was looking for contacts to find new bands or to work with them and their bands, then I had a kind of a relationship already with them. And some of those relationships endure to this day. From that, I went to Melbourne and worked with David Vodicka at Media Arts Lawyers for a number of years. Learnt my trade as an entertainment lawyer there. Across to the Mushroom Group. I think I had two dreams or two ambitions when I came into work as a music lawyer, and that was to be an artist lawyer, and at some stage to represent the biggest independent company in Australia, and that was Mushroom. And I ticked off both of those, so I kind of reset my goals, and the third one then was to represent and work with the future biggest independent music company in Australia, and that is what is going to be unified. What is unified now, and what unified will become in the future.
That's tremendous. That is so cool. It's like entrepreneurial goal setting. It really seems that the position that you are here, it certainly wasn't no accident. You've worked your ass off and really had that drive to do that. Which as a lecturer, I see some students that they want it that, well, they say they do, but they don't have that burning desire from the gut to do. And you've obviously got that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think goal setting plays a massive part in our business now, and I kind of think I got to my mid-30s and I was like, hey, I'd achieved a number of the goals that I'd set out to do, and I kind of took that moment of going, well, what's next? And I met Jadden, who's the CEO of Unified. I met him as one of my first clients at Media Arts, and we used to spend hours upon hours drunkenly talking about the industry and the state of the industry and the players and everything about the industry. And we had a massive passion for it and our thirst for knowledge for it that then when we got the chance to work together, it was then going to be putting into play all of those kind of ambitions and dreams. But it took a moment to reset my goals after I'd set those kind of medium to long term goals that I thought were medium to long term when I was studying, but a few fortunate events along the way, but a few kind of planned events along the way. I think the relationships I built when I was skating around and carrying a ton of posters to put up in cafes around Brisbane, the relationships that I built then helped me get my job with Media Arts, because those managers gave me and one guy, Stu Waters, who's still a good friend today, he vouched for me as a genuine person and a person that David should employ, and so that relationship helped me get my job, and those relationships have helped me throughout my career.
Just brilliant. And I know you get asked this a lot, and so I don't want to actually ask you this question, but just, people are often want to hear from someone like you who is so successful, how do I sort of emulate your success? And you've mentioned relationships, which are obviously very important. We've talked about passion. What are some of the other attributes you think people need to have to get to somewhere like you, or try to get to somewhere like you are?
I think you need to find the niche that works. Like we work in heavy music, and that's you find your core group that you can work with. Like we've got a very kind of close-knit team of people that we work with, and all of those people Jadden had kind of I can't say picked up along the way, but it kind of did, got attracted, and those are really close relationships, and now we're developing those relationships and those close kind of bonds internationally, and they're people that we'll turn to and we'll work with for 20 or 30 years. And I think so I think it's definitely the ability to form a bond with people and invest time and energy into building those relationships. I think I've said that a number of times this week at Big Sound, that those relationships that you build are going to be the ones that help your career if you're a band, or help you as a manager find the next little thing, find the next little spark or opening for your artist. And I think, we all talk about passion in the industry and a love of music, and that's absolutely what drives us. That it's not a 9-to-5 job. You're not going to clock out at the end of the day, and you're not going to walk home not thinking about music. But you're going to continue to think about music incessantly when you go home, and it's probably going to be the drive to open your phone again and check what emails have come in from overseas or wherever, and reply to those emails, because you have an incredible thirst for doing it yourself. I think. And then, what else is it that helps you drive in this industry?
Let me give you some. One that often comes up is hard work, which you've mentioned. One Graham Nixon gave me. He says he sees a lot of lack of patience in young people today, the millennials and the Gen Ys.
It's tough to comment on that because I employ so many young people. I think the people that are starting to thrive in our company that we've picked up along the way have that drive and ambition, but it's the patient teaching the patients is a big part of it. I think a desire to work hard sometimes is tough you can't teach it. A desire to listen to people trying to help you. The big thing that we've had to go through as a young company is trying to retain staff, but also trying to help staff grow and develop. That we're only I'm 37 and I'm pretty much the oldest in the company, and it's how then do we teach the younger people? I have to learn how to teach younger people to want to stay somewhere, but I also have to teach young people that if they put the time and energy into these things now, then they're going to pay off in a huge way in the future. They're going to be what sets them up to be a manager that's going to manage for the next 30 years and not burn them out. Like learning to turn off your phone sometimes. It's learning to not go to a gig because you don't need to be there, or go on tour. That's the biggest one for young kids. Like if you're a manager, the best thing ever is to go on tour because you get to hang with a band. But sometimes like the quickest way that Jadden and Luke learned that they're going to get more business done was not going on the road, because you can't work when you're on the road.
Distractions.
Yeah, totally. Beer, party, but or being in a van. Like it's I think it's the ability to want to work hard at that and kind of take a step away sometimes from what you're doing is the next kind of learning that I think we're trying to teach the young staff is have a breather, have a moment, spend time with family, and not invest 24 hours a day, just about 23 and a half.
Yeah, no, look, that's great. And one thing that just keeps coming up over and over again, and speaking with you and speaking with Jadden and Maya, is the culture at Unified, and you really are fostering this amazing culture where, you know, is giving people the room to develop professionally and personally, and looking out for the artists and all those things that you think would be, common sense for a music company. But in the past, as we both know, that's not always necessarily been the case.
I think there's, and I'll kind of tread lightly in saying this here, that there's been a really, I think, unfortunate misconception in the industry for so long that it's an underpaid industry and you're doing it because of love. As an industry, we're not going to attract and retain the brightest minds if we rely on just pure passion people to be here, or people are going to get burnt out and leave and work in an industry where it's maybe a 9 to 5, but they get paid more. And so one of the things that we kind of are trying to work on is that it's a financial thing, but you've got to earn enough money to pay people what they deserve to earn. But it's a cultural thing as well, and that you've got to change. That you see in tech companies, I mean, the classic kind of Google beanbags, that's gone. But the conversation around wellness and mental health and supporting staff is a crucial one that we think that's going to be how we change the conversation in our industry, how we manage staff for 30 years and how we keep staff for 30 years. It's not, we don't want to rely on them following us, Jadden, blindly. We don't want to relying on fear of not being able to work in the industry because they couldn't get another job. We want them to come to work, have a healthy work-life balance, get paid what they deserve to be paid, and still have that insane passion that they will do stupid things like stay out at gigs 5 nights a week and fly around the world to make sure that their band is having the biggest opportunity to break, and probably miss out on family opportunities at home. Jadden and Rachel spent the first year of their marriage essentially apart for 80-90% of it because they were trying to break an artist globally, and that's an insane passion and drive to make that happen. But there's got to be there's got to be a balance there and a reward there at the end, and music can, like, seeing an artist succeed can be a reward, but there's got to be other rewards that are beyond that, and that's what we're trying to foster and in our company. That I mean, maybe it's partly employing so many Gen Ys. We've got to do a bit beyond blind loyalty and passion. That we've got to look after. We've got to be part of that conversation that has a gender balance in the workplace, that pays properly, that offers a wellness program, that I think probably a third of our staff do yoga and part of our staff do meditation, and that's part of the conversation that yeah, we're a different era in the music business, and we're proud to be that. We're not trying to be a Google beanbag company, but we're just trying to be a good, I guess, responsible people that look out for the people that work for us.
Well, Matt, from an outsider's perspective, it seems to be working, and it's very, very inspiring indeed. You talked about obviously wanting to be able to pay people properly, and that relies on having a successful company. And I imagine one of the cornerstones of the income streams that come into your company is music publishing, which is all based around the rights of copyright and knowing and understanding copyright and people being treated fairly. I read your paper that you wrote, and it was very, very interesting, and you're going to talk about that today. Do you want to just, maybe give my listeners a bit of an insight to what you talked about, the essential ingredients for a healthy creative industry? I mean, you've already been starting to speak about that, but then the fairness, the openness, and the rock-solid regulatory framework, which is all around the copyright sort of struggle we've got in this digital age. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, I have taken an active part in I guess, helping to be part of the conversation around the industry and government and regulation, and it's probably the driest area. It's not artist management, but it's such a crucial part of what is going to help our industry survive long into the future. And I took that part in that because I sat in this round table a couple of years ago, and I looked around I'd been invited to be part of this round table, and looked around the table, and there was about 30 people, and they were all academics, advisors, and people that worked in kind of, I won't say peripheral, but kind of worked in support parts to the industry, which are crucial. And we were talking about the value of copyright, and I said. And people were kind of, it was about 3 years ago, and people were like, oh, it's terrible. Oh, we've got to work out how we maintain value. We're not selling CDs, how we maintain the value in copyright. And I kind of piped up and said, look, to be honest, we still see an incredible value in copyright in the current environment. And into the future, we see a massive value increasing, but we're changing from buying products to consuming, and people are going to continue to value copyright because they're valuing creativity. And this 50-odd-year-old gentleman kind of piped up and said, oh, I'm not sure if you really know what you're talking about. He didn't say Sonny. I kind of would have punched him if he did. But he was so condescending that I went, you know what? I literally got up and walked out on that round table very shortly after. Yeah. But I looked around, and there was no one else in the room that was from a business, worked in a business. And I said, from that point on, I'm going to be part of the conversation that changes and leads our industry and now change in our industry, because Jan and myself and our company and some fellow companies like Future Classic and Andrew Stone from Chug Music, that we're the young leaders of this industry in terms of being engaged in that high-level conversation, and it's our industry for the next 30 years. And if we're not part of the conversation that's going to be led by people that either aren't involved in a day-to-day operational understanding of the business, or they're going to be receiving their information secondhand from reports or studies, and they're not the people that should be involved in that conversation. So I kind of took an active step. I was involved in the event that taking musicians to Parliament House and talking to parliamentarians. The quickest way to access parliamentarians is to put Daryl Braithwaite singing Horses in front of them, and it worked geniusly. Congratulations to ARIA and PBCA and those organisations for doing that. But what it opened up was a conversation at government, and we're kind of in a very precarious position at the moment. There's some legislation that's being proposed that could have a very, very significant impact on the future value of music. It's a term called safe harbour, and I encourage people to read. And there's been a long campaign to make sure safe harbour provisions aren't brought into Australia, because at the moment we're seeing them being rolled back looking to be rolled back in Europe. But hopefully by the end of the year we're going to have some clear indication on that being rolled back. And in the US, who the hell knows what's happening in the US? Nothing can happen. But there is signs that will roll back in the US, and so Australia potentially bringing in legislation that the rest of the world is moving away from. It was just a bit of a nonsensical situation. So I guess we took an active role in speaking up there, and the paper that I wrote was around talking about the value gap, which is and valuing creativity and valuing continuing to retain the value in the creative industries, and ultimately what I said was I came into this industry as an artist lawyer, and I'm a failed singer. But I realised that I was a terrible singer. But my brain, I could protect and help artists and fellow musicians. So I wanted to do that. So I guess this is a step into that, of helping musicians continue to be able to create. Alison Wenham said this week that copyright is essentially the ability for a creator to make their next work. So it's, if you follow that, it's just they can get paid so they can create their next piece, and I think it's that simple. Like, we've got to maintain a value there. We've got to the value gap is something that's a conversation around what value is placed on it and paid through by some tech companies for music, as opposed to other tech companies that are properly licensing the music and recognise and appreciate the value of the music, and that's what we've got to maintain. That a conversation that those tech companies are building themselves on the value of this music, of this content. So we've got to make sure they pay for that right value for the music.
Mm-hmm. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but that safe harbour, or these safe harbour laws that may come in, this is about people being able to use art and not have to pay for it. Was that the idea of it?
At the core of it, it's a protection for companies that are infringing copyright, to say, if you take adequate steps, we know you're infringing, but if you take adequate steps, then you'll be protected from prosecution. So it was something that was brought in 20 years ago, and essentially was there to protect something like an internet service provider. So the IONet case in Australia was around safe harbour. And so it was an inadvertent breach of copyright. So something going through the pipeline, they can't control every little bit of data going through there, so it's a protection there. What's ultimately happened is, and I don't believe this was contemplated when it was created, but in America, certain companies, whether it's it's hard to avoid saying it, but the elephant in the room always is Google or Facebook now, or Twitter, an Australian company called Redbubble. They operate under these ideas that if someone else puts it up online, so user-generated content is put on their service, as long as they have something that they can go, oh, sorry, we didn't realise it's up there, we'll provide a mechanism for you to take it down, then they're protected from copyright infringement. The unfortunate result of it is that because they have this protection, they don't have to, when they come to have a conversation with the music companies or with the television companies, they can say, oh, look, we don't actually have to have a conversation with you about licensing your music, because you can take it down if you want. but it's like whack-a-mole. You can't take every bit of music down off YouTube. So it's better to license it. Warner tried to do the whack-a-mole approach years and years ago, but it failed. So it's about then, okay, well, we'll enter a conversation with you to properly license it. But because they've got this protection, they don't actually have to negotiate like other companies do. They can go, oh, well, it's too hard. You just take the content down, which doesn't work. Whereas someone like Spotify or Apple Music or Deezer or these other providers, they don't have that protection. So they have to negotiate with us properly for using their content. They're creating the value of their company on the back of this content, so they have to pay. So ultimately, what we've got to a situation of is that a stream on YouTube pays approximately 1/20th of what a stream on Spotify is. And so it's called the value gap. So we might get 0.05 of a cent from a stream on Spotify, but you get 1/20 of that from every stream. And the stream, I don't think there's a difference between a stream on Spotify and a stream on YouTube. If a kid's sitting at a college student, a uni student sitting in front of their computer and they're wanting to listen to Vance Joy and they go, oh, we're like, I'll go to YouTube and play it, or I'll go to Spotify and play it. It's a stream to stream. It doesn't really matter. So the concept, so we've got a very, very big problem there that this safe harbour provision protects these companies from artificially protects these companies from negotiating a commercial rate. So it's a pretty significant issue, and so Australia is considering safe harbour provisions. I don't think in the current state of play in Australia we're going to see it. At least fingers are crossed that we don't see it. But it's a very, very significant issue, because if you follow that, if these safe harbour provisions come into Australia, then that value gap is going to be maintained, and we're going to have an artificial playing field that these companies don't have to negotiate properly to, and the valuation of these companies is extraordinary. Google is a multi-billion-dollar company, and it's building its value off creative content. It's providing some other good services. It provides maps and search and these things, but there's a big part of it that's the content driven. So yeah, it's worth fighting for, I believe, and we're going to continue fighting for it.
That's awesome. And I was going to ask, do you think the politicians are listening to, like, when you rocked up with Daryl? And
I think they were just unaware. I heard recently that Google has more lobbyists than, well, jokingly, than we've ever had hot dinners in our life. But they've got the pockets are so deep on it, and they tell an easy tale that they've co-opted the term innovation. That and this is what we're fighting against. We're fighting against a company that's just got so much money and power and got the ear of politicians as being, oh, we're the only ones that can innovate, and copyright stifles innovation. So I keep getting told as I go into these meetings, oh, but you're stifling innovation by putting a barrier up. And I'm like, well, the company is being valued on the back of what we're doing, and they're going to launch an IPO on the stock exchange and make billions of dollars. But they're going to make that on the back of our copyright and our content, that they're not going to pay anything more when they IPO to us. So get stuffed. But I think so we're behind the eight ball as an industry. Mm-hmm. There's now a very, very strong and kind of focused push on from the creative industries to educate. Excuse me, and I think that education process is getting through and is cutting through on it. The power of musicians to stand up for something they believe in is exceptionally strong. I mean, the musicians standing up anytime they get heard. So I think the message is finally getting through. That it's not as simple as going, oh, we change this and everyone's fine. You change that, you change one term in the Copyright Act, and you decimate the creative industry. You have a very significant impact on the creative industries. that message is now being heard. So the unfortunate byproduct of Scott Ludlam losing his seat, though, was many friends, Green supporters, was I pointed out that he was a supporter of safe harbour provisions, which astonished them, but also made them kind of think twice a little bit on the Greens policy. But it was I think we're getting through that message that it's a more complicated issue to discuss, and I think that's where the next turn of this conversation will go, is how do we continue to value copyright beyond the current mechanism, because you can't change legislation. Legislation is always going to remain behind what's happening in the real world. So how do we change legislation to acknowledge what's happening now, but provide a little bit of a I guess hedge of bets for the future that doesn't harm the tech companies investing money, because it's important. Like our Spotify investing money has been exceptionally important for the music industry. Apple and Spotify buying small tech startups that support and grow their business has been exceptionally important for the creative industries. So we don't want to kill that, but we just wanted that to happen in an environment where copyright's respected and compensated for its value.
That's fantastic, mate. That's really great. That's, wow, blown away. And it's just so awesome that we've got someone in your position to be able to lobby on the behalf of the music industry for that. I guess as I was listening to you speak, I was impressed, obviously, but then I also started thinking, at a grassroots level, though, copyright's always been one of those laws that no consumers don't really take seriously. Everyone thinks nothing about. I mean, back in my day, you'd buy an album, you'd tape it for your mates, and then you had the whole Napster thing. Do you think that's going to hurt your cause? The fact that, in my experience, in my opinion, most music consumers don't really think about that kind of stuff. It's just like, yeah, I want to get it for free, I don't want to pay for it, or I want to pay for it as little as possible.
It's definitely an interesting point, and I mean, I always battled. I had a record club years and years ago, and it's kind of still existing in a form. But before Spotify and RDO came around, the record club we'd share 3 albums, a cult, a classic, and a new album, and we're all music lovers, and I was always conflicted. Having to burn a CD for people, but I mean the upshot of it is that pretty much everyone in the record club has bought almost all of those albums now. So like I was always conflicted. I sit on a moral high horse quite often, and so I tried to avoid, and I very, very rarely downloaded any TV shows. I can't say I'm 100% a saint, but. It's a very, very conflicted situation. However, I think what has changed is that free is almost attainable now. I think free, like consumption, is almost free. Yep. I bagged Google before, but at least we're getting paid if people watch music on YouTube. You can get free services, whether it's, Pandora's gone now, but Spotify has a free tier. Apple Music has a 3-month trial free tier. It's like consumption is kind of there at a free level. And that's one of the things that I think us in the music in the creative industries we were the lowest lying fruit that was going to get impacted first. Film... It took longer to download a film than it does to download an album. So we were always going to be impacted a lot quicker. But the ability of our industry to I guess, adapt and innovate, and that's kind of where, like 5 years ago, streaming didn't really exist. It now makes up, in some parts, 60% of revenue for companies. So in 5 years we've had to change our business model. Now we make as much money on a record in 5 years as you used to in 12 months or 18 months. So it's like that how you market a record has changed entirely, and so we've had to innovate as a business. But more so, we've adapted and innovated there to a model where music is everywhere and music is easily consumable. So, I mean, my daughter now has a Spotify playlist that she's 7, and I think the next generation that comes through won't really consider downloads as a thing. I think downloads is definitely on the decline. I think it's kind of on the periphery now because we've provided an option for people to consume for essentially free or cheap, which has been crucial to the change in where the industry's at.
That whole notion coined by David Bowie all those years ago, music like water. Are you aware of that one? Yeah, no, and so it's like, you turn on the tap and you think it's free to get your drink, but you're actually paying your rates. I guess, in my experience running this show and teaching, a lot of my guests even still think, oh, streaming's so bad. But, talking to guys like you and other high-profile managers saying that basically streaming's the saviour of the music business. Yeah,
I think I've seen less and less in the last few years of artists coming out and bagging streaming. Which I think it took a little while, but that's the thing with streaming, that we're going to, like I said, we're going to earn. The artist is going to earn the same amount of revenue in 5 years as they did in 12 months or 2 years. So, but the difference, and it was actually a big sound about 8 years ago, a really, really intelligent gentleman from Beggars Group, Simon Wheeler, is the head of digital there, and I was fortunate to have dinner with him, and the insight then of what we were going to have, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago, and he said, when you sell a CD, you have one interaction with a customer. You sell them once, the CD might be $25, it might be $5, they're bought in a discount bin. If they lose that CD, you're not having any interaction with them at all ever again. With streaming, you have an interaction with that customer forever. The number of times a person comes back to listen to the music, every time you're finding out, you're having another engagement with them. They're being refreshed about the back catalogue. The back catalogue for some of our artists now is it went up. The income went up. It went down and pretty much died off because you don't remanufacture CDs. You might repress an LP, but there was, outside of iTunes as a download, there was not really any kind of engagement or way that you could kind of re-engage with that person to listen to the back catalogue of Northlane. But the revenue that artist, the income that artist is seeing now, and that's only an artist that's 5, 6, 7 years old, that they're seeing from their first album is incredible now, that it's kicking in and will probably pass what they earned in the first period when they release the album at some stage in the future. Because when you listen to an artist on Spotify, that you listen through and then you keep going down into their back catalogue and you keep listening through the artist and you keep hearing more, and if you leave the artist playing, then it'll go through all of their back catalogue, and all of those times that and then we've got another artist at the moment that I don't think we would have ever recouped. The band broke up probably 3 years ago. Traditionally, we wouldn't have ever recouped on it wasn't a large investment, but they got picked up in some East European countries on some playlists, and we're probably going to recoup that artist, and they're going to start seeing royalties after they've broken up. Years after they've broken up, they'll start seeing royalties, and it's because of finding weird connections, and that's what streaming can do. It can engage people for lifetimes to come. Mm-hmm. So it's very exciting, and I think we took the approach and the attitude that we're in a global market, and we can have engagements. I went to South America at the end of last year, and the market there is going to be insane for Australian artists. But traditionally, you wouldn't have gone near South America because you couldn't get money out of their taxes and the local corruption and local companies just chewing it up. That the music industry was kind of a bit of a rogues gallery over there. But now we're seeing really good revenue coming out of there, and Millie Milgate and the Sounds Australia team are taking Australian acts over there and Australian managers over there going, get in here now because this is going to be massive, and we definitely see it's going to be massive.
Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing. And also the thing I just thought of is also Google opening up the free internet for Africa continent, the whole African continent, what that might open up.
Oh, it's insane. And I sit on a worldwide independent network, and I technically am one of 5 rest of world delegates. There's 5 from Europe and 5 from America, and then 5 from rest of world. And I jokingly kind of say I've got to represent the Nigerian music industry. I've got to represent the Peruvian music industry and the Tongan music industry. But you kind of, jokes aside, like, we're going to see those places like Google are doing an incredible job in trying to bring the other 4 billion people in the world online. And once those things start to happen, yes, we're going to start to see like the music as a connection point for people is everyone wants to listen to music, and so we're going to there's a lot of the sun is rising, I believe, for the industry.
That is so inspiring. And I was going to ask you, so this is your vision perhaps for the music industry for the 21st century? It's looking good?
I think it's looking good. I think we were talking about it earlier. There's a lot of new challenges that we're going to see. I think, and that's where copyright's got a provision for it. We've got to adapt to it. That we can't. I read an article the other day. It was saying, is the music industry having its mission accomplished moment? And I think that term is kind of universally acknowledged as the ridiculous moment when George Bush thought he'd conquered Iraq and destroyed Iraq and yada yada and Taliban and we saw what's happened since then. And so the question was: is the music industry having this mission accomplished moment? Because if we are, then we're kind of a bit delusional. I'm absolutely confident that streaming is going to have a massive impact and support. And we saw Goldman Sachs say that the music industry is going to be worth $48 billion in 2021. I mean, as a reference point, in 1998, it was worth $52 billion. So kind of like we're just getting back potentially to what it was worth back then. However, it's a leaner, smarter, more innovative industry now. The biggest challenges we're going to see coming forward are things like in-home entertainment systems that are voice activated. Like, how do we discover music if it's purely by voice activation and we don't have a device that we're looking at a playlist? How do we prompt these things, and how do we control these things, and how do we be front and center of the music discovery at that point? I know there's smarter people than I that are thinking about this, but we can't kind of rest on our laurels, I think, is the point at the moment, that the industry is going to continue to be challenged. But it's certainly, in the age of consumption, we've certainly found a way, and it took some dinosaurs to die, but the industry has changed and the industry is evolving, and there's some definitely positivity around it.
Very, very inspiring, mate. Very inspiring and very exciting. Very exciting. Good time to be in the music industry, it sounds like. All right, well, look, mate, we're running out of time, so I want to throw a few quick ones at you. Sure. The Unify Heavy Music Gathering, amazing success. I guess my instinct is that you guys run an amazing show, great artists, but also the gap that Soundwave left has helped you become so successful so quickly. Would you agree with that?
I think yes and no. Like, I think Soundwave catered to a very diverse market. It catered to old school metalheads through to pop punk kids, and we're very niche in that. We're a metal and hardcore festival, and we're unashamedly kind of a bit more niche than that was. I think we're seeing so many very genre-specific and very kind of community-focused events come up. I think the one thing that's is the success. I won't take away that it would have been more difficult in the Soundwave era to do this. I don't think it would have been impossible, but maybe we're doing what Soundwave we would have done what Soundwave did to Big Day Out when Stereosonic and Soundwave started. Yep. Basically, the idea of a multi-genre festival kind of died. Like, maybe us doing between us and Poison City doing a Poison City Weekender and us doing a Unify, maybe that would have had an impact on Soundwave. But I think more what you're seeing is I hate the term boutique, but because it's just smaller. But I think more community-focused events are having greater success. Like, really engaged events where you're building a great kind of engagement with people. Like the road to Unify is something that was coined the first year because we said, hey, let us know how you're going and where you are. And all of a sudden we had a post that was 400 posts, and it was people that are in Wagga Wagga, dudes driving from Broome, and they still come over each year. They're legends. They were driving from Broome, and it's like people driving down the coast. And so all of a sudden this engagement, and then all of a sudden they're starting to meet up at service stations, and there's a road train of people coming. And it was kind of those, I mean, that was a bit of by default, and we've kept that going, but it was about the people being engaged and finding somewhere they felt safe, a safe space, and somewhere that people came that knew them, and it's, I think that's the punk and hardcore community that we kind of come out of. But it's that was, I think it's the success has been partially that, but it's also been partially kind of like great way to engage the community.
Absolutely. And any hot tips for any artist or manager listening to this on how I get my band on the bill? Any secrets we can get into your inbox or get your attention?
Luke Logerman's the master here. He listens far and wide, and he listens to people that he trusts that playing music, that tour, playing on tours. Every kind of source of music that Luke has is someone that is a booking agent, a young manager. We've just started working with a young guy in Brisbane that had started his own little label, and he's now managing 2 acts that we have signed on. He'd put out a 7-inch of these bands or an EP, and we've now signed those 2 bands, and it was through recommendation that we found them. They're hardworking bands. They're jumping on tours, and it's I think it's definitely just being part of the community. And I mean, I played in a band donkeys years ago in Brisbane, and we played 40 odd shows in the first year. And the only reason we did that was because we all worked at community radio. We were all out on Thursday night watching the first band at the Railway Hotel that was playing. We were supporting our mates' bands on a Saturday afternoon doing an all-ages gig. Like, we were part of the community, and that was rewarded.
Maya Janeska told me yesterday, if you're having a red hot go and your music's half good and you're getting out there working, you guys will find out about them.
Totally. Absolutely agree. She's on the ball there.
Yeah. The Unified grant, amazing, generous, inspiring, helpful. What are you looking for in the people that apply? Can you give us any tips there?
Innovation, ingenuity, and an entrepreneurial kind of approach. We supported last year a young lady that was going out into, and I'm not saying this is the way to do it, but a young lady that was creating art for Indigenous artists, and so that they could release their music, and that was, we just saw that as she just needed a new computer because she couldn't actually do any artwork in an Indigenous community where there's no power because of a power battery. Her computer would keep dying, and it was like, we're going to be able to help her create art that she can. That those artists can then share with the world. It's like, we just want people that are like, I started a business, Luke started a record label years and years ago, Jadden started a record label. It's basically, it's for those people that we were 15 years ago, that we would have died for $5,000 to run our business. Jesus, if we'd been given that leg up, so that's at the core of it. It's just something with some ingenuity.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll have all of the details for the Unified grant on the show notes, so go and check that out on my page there. And finally, Matt, can you give me an exclusive? Anything exciting happening in Unified? Any signings or anything that I can be one of the first to jump on, knowing that you're talking today at Big Sound and that this probably won't come out for another 2 weeks?
Well, hopefully I'm going to be able to sign some bands that played here. Hopefully by then. An awesome band that played tonight. I played a couple of nights ago, Introvert. We're hopefully going to work with, and we're going to be launching a bloody cracking Australian rock label with a legend of Brisbane. That I'll leave that one there, and help, I guess, build another community of people that listen to good rock and roll.
Awesome. Well, Matt Rogers of Unified, thank you so much for your time. I realise how busy you are, mate. I feel very privileged that you've spoken to me, and thanks for such an amazing insight. I can't wait to go back and listen to this one, mate.
Thank you for going easy on me, Rod, on my first interview ever.
All the best, mate. We're shaking hands. Yeah. See you guys. Well, there you have it, people. Matt Rogers, what a cool guy and what a great insight into the thoughts and processes of not only a practicing music lawyer, but also one of the heaviest hitters in the Australian music business. And if you like my interview with Matt, you might also like my interview with his boss. I was also lucky enough to interview the Unified founder and director, Jadden Comerford, and Jadden's interview can be found with all the rest of my show notes over at the musicbusinessfacts.com website. As always, people, you can connect with me anytime. The best place to do that is on Facebook, facebook.com/musicbusinessfacts. And if you'd like to contribute to the show and help me continually bring this to you, you can help me at paypal.me/musicbusinessfacts. Okay, on the next episode of the show, I've got another great member from the Unified team as well. I was lucky enough to speak with Maya Janeska, who is one of the only female heads of a music label in Australia, so that was a real treat. So I look forward to bringing you my interview with Maya on the next episode. And until then, I'll leave you with today's quote. And it's a nice, simple one, but a very powerful one. Every accomplishment starts with the decision to try. Think about that. Until next time, people, this is Rodney Holder signing off for musicbusinessfacts.com. I'll copy you later.
You've been listening to the Music Business Facts podcast. For more essential music business tips and information, visit musicbusinessfacts.com.